In the world of narcos, it was clear who was in charge. Men ran the cartel. Women kept quiet. But this story breaks those rules, because today it's about a new generation. Daughters, sisters, nieces, who refuse to submit. They didn't ask for permission. They took over. And if you thought their uncles were brutal, you have no idea what these women are capable of. Sandra Avila Beltran, the Reina del Pacifico, the niece of the godfather of godfathers. Origin and family background. Sandra Avila Beltran was born on October 11, 1960, in Baja California, Mexico. She is the niece of Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, the legendary founder of the Guadalajara Cartel, and later godfather of Mexican drug trafficking. Her family was also closely associated with the Beltran-Leyva cartel and Rafael Caro Quintero, two key figures in the Sinaloa network. Through these connections, she grew up in a world where wealth, violence, and power were part of everyday life. Youth and rise. Sandra enjoyed a privileged childhood, complete with luxury cars, trips to Disneyland, and dance lessons. At the same time, she learned to count money at an early age. As an adult, she was reportedly able to determine the value of a bundle of banknotes at a glance. She originally wanted to become a journalist, but abandoned her studies after her life became increasingly entangled with narco connections. In the late 1980s and 1990s, she became increasingly involved in the structures of the Sinaloa and Norte del Valle cartels. Her most famous relationship was with Colombian drug trafficker Juan Diego Espinosa Ramirez, El Tigre, who made her the link between Mexico and Colombia. Role in the cartel and media image. Sandra was given the title La Reina del Pacifico, Queen of the Pacific, because she allegedly helped organize huge cocaine shipments along the Pacific coast, until 9 tons were seized on a ship in 2001. Authorities described her as an important link between Sinaloa and Colombia. In the media, she was often portrayed as a glamorous diva, Botox, luxury lifestyle, high fashion, but at the same time as a woman with real influence in the narco business, managing financial strategies and forging powerful networks. Arrest and imprisonment. On September 28, 2007, Sandra was arrested by federal authorities in Mexico City on suspicion of money laundering, weapons possession, and links to the drug cartel. U.S. authorities later charged her with organized crime and drug smuggling, leading to her extradition to the U.S. in August 2012. She was sentenced to 70 months, 5 years and 10 months in prison in Miami. However, she was returned to Mexico in 2013, where she was again charged with money laundering and was finally released in 2015 under double jeopardy legislation. After her release and cultural impact. After her imprisonment, she stated in interviews that she viewed drug trafficking as an immoral business reality and relativized the violence by citing state responsibility and demand. Particularly striking, despite her connections and possible responsibility, she was never charged with murder. She has since emerged as a TikTok influencer, with hundreds of thousands of followers, and provides insights into her life after narco-capitalism. The irony, once in hiding, now visible on social media. Culturally, she inspired characters such as Isabela Bautista in Narcos Mexico, is said to have been part of the inspiration for Arturo Pérez Reverte's novel character Teresa Mendoza, La Reina del Sur. Enadina Arellano Felix, the CFO and first woman at the helm of the Tijuana cartel. Early life and education. Enadina Arellano Felix was born on April 12, 1961, in Mazatlan, Sinaloa, into a family that entered the drug trade in the 1970s, led by her uncle, Miguel Ángel Felix Gallardo, and later her brothers. She made a conscious decision to study business administration, accounting, at a private university in Guadalajara, an unusual choice in an environment dominated by violence. In the 1980s, she was the financial expert behind her brother's machinations. She remained inconspicuous for a long time, both to the authorities and the public. Key financial role in the cartel. Anadina was largely responsible for money laundering, financial structuring, and administration of the Tijuana cartel long before the media discovered her. After the fall of her predecessor, El Chuy, the former financial head, she assumed far-reaching powers around 2000. Although her brothers were in charge, she acted as the strategic brain behind the scenes. As a trained accountant, she focused on cash flows, international transactions, and coordination with Colombian suppliers. Rise to boss. La Madrina, La Jefa, Narco Mami. With the demise of her brothers, Benjamin in 2002, Eduardo in 2008, Anadina effectively took over the leadership of the cartel, together with her son, Luis Fernando Sanchez Arellano, who rose to become the boss. Her influence was unusual. While other cartels ruled through violence, Anadina relied on business vision rather than violence. She reduced internal conflicts, built cooperation networks, and ensured stable sources of income. She was given nicknames such as La Madrina, La Jefa, and Narco Mami, expressions of her role as family matriarch, chief financial officer, and internal cartel leader. Prosecution and consequences. Anadina remained unscathed for a long time, even during massive U.S. sanctions against the cartel under the Kingpin Act of 2000. It was only after the arrest of her brother Eduardo that her role became publicly visible. In 2008, she was officially named as the head of the cartel. Subsequently, the U.S. Treasury Department imposed sanctions on over 70 companies associated with the CJNG and controlled by her family. Anadina's family was closely intertwined with the Gonzalez Valencia family, the financial arm of the CJNG in the former Milenio cartel. Retirement and public life. Anadina lives largely in seclusion and avoids media appearances. Even during her life, after her active time in the cartel, she rarely appears in public, unlike Sandra Avila Beltran, for example, who uses social media. She is considered one of the few women worldwide who have taken over a drug empire after the death or imprisonment of its male leaders, without ever having been officially convicted of violent crimes. Psychological perspective and narrative approach. Anadina fits the concept perfectly. A niece who became more powerful than her uncles, and did so with her head instead of a bullet. Her style stands in stark contrast to the violent leadership styles of other cartels. Rational, discreet, and calculated. Emma Coronel Aispuro, the niece who married El Chapo and helped shape the cartel. Origin and family tree. Emma Modesta Coronel Aispuro was born on July 2, 1989, in Santa Clara, California, USA, the daughter of Blanca Estela Aispuro and Inés Coronel Borreras, a high-ranking member of the Sinaloa cartel, who was later sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department under the Kingpin Act. She is the niece of Ignacio Nacho Coronel Villarreal, one of the leaders of the Sinaloa cartel, who was killed in a shootout in 2010. Emma grew up in La Angostura, a remote village in Durango, Mexico, in the so-called Golden Triangle of drug trafficking, characterized by marijuana and opium cultivation. Meeting El Chapo and marriage. At the age of 17, Emma won a local beauty contest at the Coffee and Guava Festival in Canelas, Durango. On her 18th birthday, she married Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, who was about 50 years old at the time, had a union with enormous symbolic and strategic significance. According to tradition, Guzman was spontaneously announced by armed men after the coronation, transforming Emma's career from Miss to narco style. She gave birth to twin girls in California in 2011. The birth certificate does not include Guzman's name, as there was a $5 million bounty on his head at the time. Role in the cartel: liaison, organizer, detention assistant. Emma was identified by U.S. investigators as part of the Sinaloa cartel structure. According to the indictment, she transmitted messages about conjugal visits, purchased land for El Chapo's escape tunnel, and generally disseminated logistical knowledge about cartel operations. In 2015, Eddie orchestrated El Chapo's spectacular escape from the high-security Altiplano prison via a tunnel. Emma is said to have smuggled in a GPS watch and organized the land for it. The FBI describes her as a key participant in the escape plan. Criminal proceedings and imprisonment. On February 22, 2021, Emma was arrested at Dulles International Airport, Virginia, USA, on charges of drug conspiracy, money laundering, and association with the cartel under the Kingpin Act. On November 30th, 2021, she pleaded guilty and received a prison sentence of 3 years plus a fine of $1.5 million. Due to a plea deal and her lack of a criminal record, the sentence was reduced, and on September 13, 2023, she was released early and transferred to supervised housing. Life after prison. Model, entrepreneur, and influencer. After her release, Emma became a social media personality. She participated in Milan Fashion Week 2024 and appeared as a model. Together with an influencer, she founded the fashion company 347, which specializes in shapewear, accompanied by a social media relaunch with over 270,000 followers. Despite her new career, her past remains present. Many followers miss her innocence, while critics see her as a glamorous part of narco culture, which is given only limited credibility. Sonia Sanginés de Atala, Bolivia's true queen of cocaine and cartel niece. Origin and historical context. Sonia Sanginés de Atala was born around 1951 in Santa Cruz de la Sierra, Bolivia. She is the niece of Hugo Hurtado Candia, a regional drug dealer, which explains her early access to the illegal world of cocaine trafficking. In the late 1970s, she was a member of La Corporación, a Bolivian drug cartel led by the notorious Roberto Suarez Gomez, the so-called king of cocaine. Rise to queen of cocaine. After the so-called cocaine coup in 1980, a military coup supported by Suarez Gomez and political allies, Bolivia's interior minister, Luis Arce Gomez, appointed him to lead the state's drug business. Within a very short time, Sonia Sanginés de Atala became the most important link for cocaine smuggling and money laundering, and soon after, the most powerful woman in Bolivia's drug trade. She had access to planes, land routes to Brazil, and Colombian transit zones. Her job? To bring cocaine to the US, Europe, and Asia, and earn millions in the process. A former DEA agent, Michael Levine, describes her as a very beautiful but deadly woman who could give orders even in remote regions of Bolivia. Her villa in Santa Cruz was known as the torture house because suspected opponents were tortured there. According to reports, her thugs were trained by former Nazi Klaus Barbie, politically protected by the Bolivian military dictatorship. Power, operations, and methods. Sonia was not just a decorative accessory. She was, in fact, Bolivia's top drug trafficker at the time. As the mastermind behind cocaine shipments along the border with Chile, Argentina, and Brazil. As the manager of monthly smuggling payments to senior staff, sometimes $20,000 per person, with a tax share of $500 per kilogram of cocaine. As a state-licensed supplier of cocaine shipments for the regime under Arce Gomez, which made her the de facto driving force behind Bolivia's shadow economy. With the international nickname Queen of Cocaine, she became the symbol of a cartel era in South America. Glamorous, feared, uncompromising. Betrayal and witness protection program. As her power grew in 1981, she began to falter. She refused to give important money to a Colombian smuggler named Papa Mejia and got caught up in a political game. The Bolivian government, which had used her as a key figure in the drug trade, turned against her. Sonia decided to take a strategic step. She became a key witness, witness protection. In her testimony, she incriminated high-ranking government officials, including Luis Arce Gomez, and, in return, received immunity from prosecution. According to media reports, she still lives under witness protection in Bolivia, shielded but free. Her former status as one of the most powerful drug dealers remains unbroken in history. Psychology and symbolic power. Sonia was not a supplier. She was the interface between drug power, the state, and international organized crime. Contrasting, a ruler, yet a woman in a criminal empire ruled by men. Strategic, no armed violence, but performance and control. Iconic, she combined beauty with cruelty and became the projection of female narco power in the media. It is said that in those dark years, she could decide who died, and yet she was never officially charged with murder. They were never meant to take power, but now they rule with more coldness than their uncles ever could. If you've seen this and still think you know the cartels, then wait until you see what comes next. Click subscribe and check out our playlist on cartel women before you're the last to find out who really controls this world.